I still remember that day as if it happened yesterday. The sun was shining, and the bank felt busier than usual. The air smelled faintly of paper and disinfectant, and the soft hum of the air conditioner mixed with the quiet murmur of people talking. I was holding my daughter's hand tightly, feeling a mix of pride and unease. She had grown so fast, and today she was unusually serious, unlike her usual cheerful self. My heart thumped faster with a strange sense of worry I couldn't explain. We walked to the counter, and she handed me a stack of papers. I looked at her and smiled, thinking she had simply made me help her with some routine banking forms. But her eyes were different. They were focused, almost calculating. I felt a chill creep up my spine, though I tried to hide it. "Just sign here," she said softly, her voice calm to calm. I hesitated, scanning the documents, but something in my gut told me to pause. I had no idea why I suddenly felt like I was standing on the edge of something I shouldn't see yet. The cashier, young woman with kind eyes, leaned slightly over the counter, glancing at the papers. I noticed her expression change for a fraction of a second, a flicker of recognition or maybe shock. I couldn't read it clearly, but it sent a shiver through me. The moment stretched heavy and silent, as if the world had slowed down just for us. My hands were trembling slightly as I held the pen, unsure whether to proceed. The cashier's eyes darted between me and my daughter, and then she whispered something under her breath. I couldn't catch the words, but it sounded urgent, like a warning carried on the wind. My daughter smiled faintly, trying to mask something. I could feel tension hanging in the air, thick and suffocating, pressing on my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. Around us, the normal sounds of the bank, the tapping of keyboards, the distant phone ringing, the rustle of papers felt muted, almost unreal. It was as if time itself was holding its breath. I wanted to ask what was wrong, but the words caught in my throat. Something about the situation felt wrong, and my instincts screamed at me to stop. Yet I couldn't move. Then, without warning, the cashier spoke clearly, her voice trembling slightly. "Sir, you need to read this note first." My heart skipped a beat. I looked at her, confused, my mind racing. My daughter's face, so calm a second ago, now seemed strangely unreadable, like a mask hiding something dangerous. The pen hovered over the paper, and I felt my hands growing colder with each passing second. What could be on this note that made the cashier look at me like that? My stomach churned with a mix of fear and curiosity. I glanced at my daughter, who avoided my gaze. Her lips pressed together tightly, and her eyes flicked nervously toward the exit, as if she wanted to run but knew she couldn't. The papers in front of me suddenly seemed heavier, as if carrying a secret I wasn't prepared to uncover. The sound of my own heartbeat thundered in my ears, loud enough to drown out everything else. I could feel the people around me moving, but they seemed distant, part of a blur that didn't matter. All that mattered was the note that could change everything. I slowly reached for it, my fingers trembling as I unfolded the small piece of paper. The handwriting was familiar mine. I didn't remember writing it. My eyes scanned the words, and the blood drained from my face. A single sentence stared back at me, chilling me to the bone. My daughter's hand rested lightly on mine, but it felt heavy, almost suffocating, as if holding me down against the truth I wasn't ready to face. The cashier's gaze never wavered, locked on me with something I still can't describe, something between fear and warning. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my shaking voice. What does this mean?" I asked, but the words felt hollow. My daughter didn't answer. Instead, she smiled faintly, almost triumphantly, and I felt the room tilt slightly around me. Everything seemed to blur: the hum of the bank, the whispers of the people, the bright sunlight spilling through the windows. Only the note and the fear it carried remained real. My heart pounded in my chest, faster and faster, and I realized that this moment would change everything. Though I didn't yet know how. Suddenly, a sharp-sounded drawer slamming shut. A distant shout, the soft click of a lock, made me jump. My daughter's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, and the cashier glanced nervously toward the door. Something was coming. I couldn't see it yet, but I felt it, a presence moving closer, drawing attention to us. The weight of the secret on the note pressed harder on my chest. I wanted to run, to grab my daughter and leave. But my legs felt frozen, trapped in a place I no longer recognized. And then, just as I took a breath, the sound of the bank's security alarm echoed faintly, like a whisper of warning. My stomach twisted into knots. Something in the note, something in the way my daughter had handed me the papers, had triggered it. I looked at the cashier, who shook her head subtly, her eyes wide, and in that instant I understood. Nothing would ever be the same after today. My hand hovered over the note, my mind racing, the fear and shock threatening to overwhelm me. I didn't know it yet. But that day, the day my daughter handed me the papers, and the cashier read the note, would be remembered forever. I could feel the tension, the danger, and the weight of secrets pressing on me. And deep down, I knew that the next moments would change our lives in ways I couldn't even imagine. The note held something dangerous, something that could shatter everything I thought I knew about my life, my daughter, and the world around me. And just as I was about to speak, the cashier leaned closer and whispered something I could barely hear. A single word that made my blood run cold. Run. I still remember that day like it was yesterday, the tension in the bank hanging over me like a storm cloud ready to burst. My daughter's hand was still resting lightly on mine, but now it felt heavier, colder, like it carried a secret I wasn't meant to know yet. The word the cashier whispered, run, echoed in my mind over and over, mixing with the loud thump of my heart. My thoughts were racing, every instinct screaming at me that something terrible was coming. Yet my mouth felt dry and frozen, unable to form words. Around us, the normal bank sounds continued, the shuffling of feet, the soft clicking of keyboards, but it all felt distant, like I was underwater, hearing everything muffled and distorted. I tried to glance at my daughter, to understand what she had done, but her expression was unreadable. Her lips were pressed tight, her eyes flicking to the door, then back at the papers. She seemed calm on the surface, but I could feel the tension in her, the urgency that she was trying to hide. My hands shook as I held the note again, reading the words over and over, unable to believe them. It was my handwriting, yet I had no memory of writing it. And the words themselves, they were not something I would ever write lightly. Fear settled in my stomach like ice, cold and hard, making it hard to breathe. The cashier, who had been watching silently, stepped closer, her eyes darting toward the exit again. "Sir, you don't have much time," she whispered, barely audible over the hum of the bank. I could see the worry etched on her face, the panic she was trying so hard to hide. I wanted to ask what she meant, but before I could speak, my daughter's voice broke the silence, soft but firm. "I need you to trust me, please." Her words should have reassured me, but instead they made my chest tighten. I had always trusted her, always believed in her, yet today something felt different. Today, trust felt like a dangerous gamble. I glanced at the doors of the bank, half expecting someone to burst in at any moment. The thought made me shiver. What was coming? Who were we supposed to run from? And why had this note, this simple piece of paper, set everything in motion? I felt trapped, the weight of the secret pressing down, making it hard to think, hard to move. My daughter took a deep breath, then reached into her bag and pulled out another piece of paper. She handed it to me without a word, her eyes locked on mine. "Read this," she said. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. The handwriting was different this time, jagged and hurried, almost desperate. My stomach knotted as I read the words. They told me things I couldn't believe, things that made my mind spin. Names I didn't recognize, dates that didn't make sense, instructions that sounded impossible. My daughter watched me carefully, her gaze calm but intense. I wanted to ask questions, but the words stuck in my throat. Fear, confusion, and shock collided inside me, making my thoughts scattered and chaotic. Suddenly, a loud thump echoed from somewhere near the entrance. My head snapped up, heart hammering in my chest. People around us jumped slightly, looking around in confusion, but my daughter and I didn't move. We were frozen, listening. Another thump, closer this time, and I could hear the faint sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming toward us. The air seemed to grow heavier, thick with tension. My palms were sweating, my legs weak. I had no idea who was coming or what they wanted, but instinct screamed at me. We needed to move. Now, my daughter leaned closer, whispering urgently, "We have to go, now. Don't look back." I nodded, swallowing hard, gripping the papers tightly. Every fiber of my being was screaming that we were about to be pulled into something dangerous, something I wasn't ready for. But before I could even stand, the cashier reached out and pressed a hand lightly on my arm. "There's something you need to know first," she said, her eyes wide, glimmering with fear. "If you leave without this, you'll never have another chance." I looked at her, then at my daughter, the papers in my hands trembling. The decision seemed impossible. I could feel time slipping away, each second heavier than the last. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, what I was being told. The words on the notes, the way my daughter was acting. The cashier's VRI all pointed to something I didn't understand yet, but I knew it was dangerous. Deadly, maybe. And yet I felt pulled forward. A strange mix of fear and curiosity pushing me to uncover the truth. The footsteps were louder now, echoing through the bank, sending waves of panic through me. My daughter grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the exit. I stumbled, my heart racing, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The cashier called after us, "Wait. Don't go yet, you need to see this." But it was too late. My daughter tugged me along, and I had no choice but to follow. Every instinct screamed to run, to escape. Yet every step felt like walking into the unknown. As we reached the doors, I glanced back, catching a fleeting glimpse of the cashier. She was holding something, a small, thin envelope, had her eyes met mine for a moment. In that moment, I felt a chill, a warning I couldn't ignore. Something in her gaze told me that what we were about to do, what we were stepping into, was bigger than any of us could imagine. And then, just as we stepped outside into the bright sunlight, I heard a voice, low, sharp voice, full of authority and menace, call my daughter's name. I froze, my stomach dropping. The words hung in the air, echoing around us. I turned to look, but before I could see anything, my daughter pulled me into the street, weaving through people. The notes clutched tightly in her hand. My heart pounded like a drum, each beat louder than the last. And as we ran, I realized something terrifying. We were not just leaving the bank. We were running from something that had been waiting for us. Something that had been planning this moment long before we even arrived. And then, in a sudden instant that made my blood run cold, a car screeched to a stop right in front of us. Its headlights blinded me for a second, and a figure stepped out, tall and menacing. I couldn't see their face, but I felt their eyes on us, watching, calculating, waiting. My daughter pulled me closer, whispering urgently, "Hold on. We have to make it to the safe place. But they know." My legs moved, my heart racing, but the world felt surreal, like I had been thrust into a nightmare I couldn't wake from. The notes burned in my pocket, heavy with secrets, heavy with danger. And as the figure in the car advanced, I realized one horrifying truth. Nothing would ever be normal again. Something had been set in motion, something unstoppable, and we were caught right in the middle of it. I still remember that Datha's sun was harsh on my face. But all I could feel was the pounding of my heart and the cold fear crawling up my spine. My daughter's grip on my hand was tight, almost painful, but I didn't dare pull away. Every step we took down the crowded street felt like stepping deeper into a nightmare. People bustled past, unaware of the danger behind us, and I envied their ignorance. Wished for even a second that life could feel normal again. The notes in my pocket seemed to grow heavier with each step, pressing secrets into my skin that I wasn't sure I wanted to carry. The screech of tires behind us made me flinch. My head snapped back, but all I saw was a blur of black car weaving through traffic, moving too fast to be anything casual. My stomach twisted with dread. Whoever was after us wasn't going to stop. I could feel the presence closing in, the same authority and menace I'd felt earlier at the bank. My daughter didn't slow, and neither did I. Every instinct screamed at me to run faster. But fear and adrenaline mixed in a way that made my limbs heavy, almost unresponsive as we turned into a narrow alley. The noise of the street faded into a low, eerie hum. Shadows stretched across the walls like dark fingers trying to reach us. I could hear our breathing, ragged and uneven, mixing with the faint drip of water somewhere further down. My daughter glanced back, eyes sharp and alert, scanning the alley for escape routes I didn't even see. The notes felt like lead in my pocket. I wanted to stop to read them again, to understand, but I knew if I did, we might never make it out. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the alley. I froze, my heart lurching into my throat. The figure was tall, dressed in black, moving slowly but deliberately toward us. I couldn't make out the face, but I could feel the eyes cold, calculating, and fixed on us like a predator locked on its prey. My daughter whispered urgently, "Keep moving. Don't let them corner us." Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. I could hear the determination in her words. But it didn't ease the fear crawling up my spine. We reached the end of the alley, only to find it blocked by a chain-link fence. My mind raced. There was no time to think, no time to plan. My daughter grabbed my arm and started climbing, dragging me with her. My fingers scraped against the metal, cutting slightly, but I didn't care. The sound of footsteps grew louder behind us, echoing, relentless. Whoever was following us wasn't stopping. They were too close, too determined. And the fear gnawed at me with every second. As we climbed over the fence, my mind flashed back to the notes. Each word seemed to pulse in my memory, whispering warnings I didn't fully understand yet. The first note, the one at the bank, had frozen me. The second note, the one my daughter had given me while we ran, was heavier, darker, and now I understood why. They weren't just papers. They were instructions, a map to something we had to reach, something we couldn't afford to ignore. But I still didn't understand the meaning. I could feel the truth lurking somewhere just out of reach, like a shadow in the corner of my vision. We landed on the other side, barely taking a moment to catch our breath before we started running again. The city streets stretched out before us, bright and busy, but every step felt like a gamble. The notes burned in my pocket, a constant reminder that this chase wasn't random. Whoever was after us knew something dangerous, something I had no right to know. My daughter glanced over her shoulder again, her face pale, lips pressed tight. Her eyes met mine for a second, and I saw a flash of something I couldn't name: fear, regret, or maybe guilt. Then a sharp shout rang out from behind. My heart skipped a beat. "Stop them!" A voice bellowed, strong and commanding. My daughter's grip on my hand tightened. We dodged through pedestrians, weaving through the crowd, trying to disappear, but it was useless. The footsteps and shouting grew louder, closer. I could feel my chest tightening, my legs burning, and yet I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. Stopping meant being caught, and being caught meant I didn't even want to imagine the consequences. We ducked into a narrow doorway of an abandoned building, the darkness swallowing us. My lungs burned and my hands were slick with sweat, but I clutched the notes tightly, afraid of dropping them. My daughter pushed me against the wall, whispering, "Listen, we can't stay here long. They'll find us." Her eyes darted around, scanning for movement. The sound of approaching footsteps made my stomach twist in knots. Whoever they were skilled and they were patient. They would not give up. I pressed my back against the cold wall, feeling the rough texture bite into my skin. Every noise outside made my heart race: the creak of a floorboard, the shuffle of shoes, the distant hum of traffic. I realized then that this wasn't just about the notes or the bank. This was bigger, much bigger, and I had no idea how deep we were already caught in it. My daughter leaned closer, her voice a whisper that trembled only slightly. "We have to move again, and we have to go now, before they see us." And just as we were about to step out into the street again, a shadow fell across the doorway. I froze, my stomach dropping. The footsteps outside stopped. Silence, heavy and suffocating, pressed in from all sides. Then a single low voice cut through the air, smooth and cold. "You can't hide from this. Not anymore." My blood ran cold. Whoever it was, they knew where we were. And at that moment, I realized one terrifying truth. The chase had only just begun. And our lives were about to change forever. I still remember that day as though the world had slowed down, each second stretching into an eternity of fear and confusion. The shadow blocking the doorway loomed over us, tall and motionless. Its presence pressed down on my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. My daughter tightened her grip on my hand, pulling me back into the dark corner of the doorway. Every nerve in my body screamed that one wrong move would change everything forever. The cold metal of the abandoned doorframe pressed against my back, and I felt the rough edges bite into my skin, grounding me in the moment even as panic surged through me. The voice spoke again, calm but menacing. "You can't hide from this. Not anymore." It wasn't loud, but it was enough to make the hairs on my neck stand on end. I wanted to move, to run, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. My daughter leaned close, whispering in my ear, "Stay quiet and follow me." Her breath was warm, but her fear was sharp, piercing, and contagious. I could smell the faint scent of her shampoo mixed with the musty odor of the building, a strange mix of comfort and dread. I nodded, swallowing hard, and let her guide me deeper into the shadowed halls. The abandoned buildings smelled of damp wood and rust, and the faint creak of floorboards under our feet echoed ominously. Each sound was amplified in the silence, each step a potential betrayal. My daughter paused near a corner, pressing her back against the wall. She motioned for me to stay behind her as she peered into the darkness ahead. I could feel her tension radiating, the way her body trembled with urgency. "There's a way out through the back," she whispered. "We have to move fast before they find us." Her words were simple, but the fear in them made my stomach churn. I had no idea who they were, only that whoever it was, they were powerful, dangerous, and relentless. We moved cautiously, every step measured. Shadows stretched across the walls like silent watchers, and I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were following us from every corner. My hands were still clutching the notes in my pocket, burning through the fabric, demanding attention. I wanted to read them, to make sense of the instructions, but I knew the moment we stopped, we might be trapped forever. Every instinct told me to run, to escape. Yet the unknown dangers ahead made each step feel like stepping into a trap. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed from somewhere above, a floorboard creaking, a whisper of movement. I froze, heart hammering. My daughter grabbed my arm and pulled me down a narrow side corridor. The air grew colder, damper, and I could feel the chill seeping into my bones. The smell of mildew was strong here, mingling with the faint scent of dust and decay. She stopped at an old metal door, rusted at the edges, and pressed her ear against it. Then, without warning, she pulled it open, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward into darkness. I hesitated at the top, staring into the black void. My daughter's eyes met mine, filled with urgency. "We have no choice. We have to go down. They can't see us yet." The darkness below seemed endless, swallowing every trace of light, and my stomach twisted with fear. My mind screamed that this could be a trap, that going down could lead to something far worse than the danger we were running from. Yet there was no other option. I followed her, each step echoing ominously in the stairwell. The notes burning against my chest, halfway down. I felt a vibration beneath my feet, subtle at first, then growing stronger. The building seemed alive, groaning and shifting around us. I glanced back, but the staircase stretched endlessly above, the daylight from the broken windows far away, unreachable. My daughter's hand tightened around mine. "They're close," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We can't stop now." I nodded, forcing my legs to move, each step heavier than the last. My breath came in short, sharp gasps, and I could feel the adrenaline surging, making my skin tingle. We reached the bottom of the staircase and found ourselves in a dimly lit basement. The air was thick, musty, almost suffocating, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed through the space. Old furniture, broken boxes, and debris littered the floor, creating shadows that danced like specters in the flickering light. My daughter pressed me against the wall and pointed to a small door on the far side of the room. Through there, she whispered, "It leads to a hidden alley. We can disappear." I nodded, swallowing hard, but as we moved toward the door, I heard a sound that made my blood freeze. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoing from the stairwell above. Whoever was chasing us hadn't given up. They were inside the building. My daughter froze, eyes wide, listening. I pressed myself against her back, heart pounding so loud I was sure it could be heard. The footsteps stopped for a moment, and then a voice, low and unmistakable, called out, "You can't hide forever. Come out." A panic clawed at me. My daughter whispered, "We have to go now or they'll find us. Keep the notes safe." Ah. I clutched the papers tighter, feeling the weight of the secret inside them, knowing that revealing them too soon could be catastrophic. As we reached the door, a shadow fell across the far wall, moving faster than I could follow. My daughter shoved me through the door and we tumbled into the alley outside, our feet scraping against the rough pavement. The city air hit me, sharp and cold, but there was no time to breathe. The footsteps behind us were getting closer. I realized with horror that whoever was chasing us knew exactly where we were going. My daughter pulled me along, twisting through side streets and abandoned alleys. But every turn seemed predictable, as if they were always one step ahead. My mind raced, trying to anticipate their next move, trying to understand what had begun in the bank and had now turned into this relentless pursuit. And then, in the distance, I saw Ida car engines starting, the headlights cutting through the darkness like knives. My daughter froze for a split second, and I could see the fear flash across her face. "They've found us again," she whispered. "We're running out of time." I swallowed hard, my chest tight, my legs aching, but I knew there was only one choice: keep moving, no matter what. And as the car's engine roared closer, I realized a terrifying truth. We were trapped in a game much bigger than we could understand. And the secrets in the notes were the key to surviving it. If we could survive at all. I still remember that day, the chill in the night air, the pounding of my heart, the way every shadow seemed to move just for us. My daughter's hand gripped mine tightly as we ran, twisting through dark alleys and side streets, our footsteps echoing in the silence. The notes in my pocket burned against my chest like they carried their own life, each word heavy with danger I didn't fully understand. Every step felt like walking on the edge of a knife. One wrong move, and we could be caught or worse. The sound of the car behind us was relentless, the engine roaring through the streets, punctuated by the distant wail of a siren. Whoever was after us had tracked us again. My mind raced, trying to remember every turn, every shortcut we had passed. But nothing was clear in the panic. My legs were screaming, lungs burning with every breath. The city lights reflected off the wet pavement, creating pools of brightness that did nothing to guide us, but made every shadow seem alive. My daughter didn't speak. Her silence was focused. But it was a silence filled with fear. We ducked into an abandoned parking garage, hoping the shadows inside would hide us. The smell of damp concrete mixed with a faint scent of oil and rust. My heart felt trapped in my chest, each beat louder than the one before. My daughter stopped near a pillar, listening. I could hear the faint echoes of our pursuers' footsteps, slower now, but deliberate, calculated. Whoever they were patient, and they were coming for us. The notes were heavy in my pocket, and I finally understood they were more than just instructions. They were warnings, directions, secrets that someone didn't want exposed. I leaned against the cold concrete wall, trying to catch my breath. My daughter pressed the notes into my hands. "You need to read this carefully," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I hesitated, fear and curiosity warring inside me. The words jumped off the page like they were alive. Names, addresses, times, people I didn't know. Plans I didn't understand. And in the middle of it all, a warning: do not trust anyone. They are closer than you think. My chest tightened. Who were we supposed to trust? And if we couldn't trust anyone, how could we survive? A sudden noise made me jump a faint click, like a lock or a switch. My daughter's eyes widened and she grabbed my hand again. "They've found another way in," she whispered. I turned slowly, trying to see in the dim light. Shadows shifted near the top of the ramp, figures moving with precision, watching us. My stomach dropped. Whoever they were, they had planned this. Every alley, every street, every step of our escape had been anticipated. The thought made my blood run cold. We ran again, moving deeper into the garage, trying to stay in the shadows. My legs were trembling, almost ready to give out. But I forced myself to keep going. My mind raced with questions. Why were they after us? What was in the notes that made us targets? And most importantly, what had my daughter done that pulled us into this nightmare? Each unanswered question felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the garage, deep and commanding. "Stop, now." It wasn't loud, but it carried authority, and it froze me in my tracks. My daughter pressed herself against me, eyes wide. And I could see her internal struggle whether to fight, run, or surrender. The notes burned in my hands, heavy with the secrets we had barely begun to understand. My mind screamed to run, but my body was frozen. Caught between fear and the unknown, a shadow moved in front of us, blocking the only exit. I could barely see the figure in the dim light, but it was tall, powerful, and silent. My daughter whispered, almost to herself, "We're trapped." My stomach twisted, trapped. The word echoed in my mind, heavier than any threat we had faced before. The footsteps that had followed us from the bank were gone, replaced by the quiet presence of someone waiting, watching. I felt the air thicken, like the world itself was holding its breath. Then, without warning, the figure stepped closer. I could see the glint of something metallic in their hand. My daughter pushed me behind her, and I could feel her fear radiating, her heartbeat matching mine in rapid, chaotic rhythm. The notes burned in my pocket as if warning me again, begging me to pay attention to their secrets, to the truth we were about to uncover. And in that instant, I realized something terrifying. Whatever we were running from, it wasn't just after us. It was after the notes, the secrets. And if they got them, we wouldn't survive to tell anyone what happened. My daughter's voice broke the silence, trembling but firm. "We have to fight," she said. "We have to make it through this." I could barely understand her logic through the fear, but instinct told me she was right. Whatever was coming, we had to face it together. And as the shadow advanced, I knew with a sinking certainty that nothing would ever be the same. The chase, the secrets, the fire, it was only the beginning. Then, sudden crash echoed from behind us, the sound of a heavy object hitting the floor, and the figure froze. My daughter's eyes lit up with a spark of hope, and I felt a small flicker of courage. But it was short-lived. From the shadows, another figure emerged, moving faster this time, cutting off our only escape. My heart leaped into my throat. We were surrounded. And in that moment, as I clutched the notes, feeling their weight like a curse and a key all at once, I realized the terrifying truth. Our fight for survival had only just begun. I still remember that day like it was yesterday, the cold air of the alley biting at my skin, the pounding in my heart echoing in my ears, and the weight of the notes pressing against my chest as if they were alive. My daughter and I were cornered, trapped in a maze of shadows and fear, with no clear way out. Every instinct screamed that danger was all around us, and every step we had taken to escape had only led us deeper into it. The night felt alive, breathing, watching us, holding its secrets close. The figures blocking our path were silent, their presence heavy and unyielding. I couldn't see their faces, but I could feel their eyes on us, cold and calculating, reading our every movement. My daughter whispered, her voice almost shaking, "We have to split up. It's the only way." My mind froze. Split up, the thought terrified me. Running alone into the dark streets, chased by strangers who seemed to anticipate our every move, it felt like madness. But I also knew she was right. Staying together would get us caught. My stomach twisted with fear and doubt, but I nodded, trusting her judgment. Even as terror clawed at me, we ducked into opposite alleys, the sounds of our pursuers growing louder. My legs burned, muscles screaming, but I pushed on, knowing that stopping meant capture. The notes in my pocket felt like they were searing my skin, each word pulsing with secrets I still didn't fully understand. I pulled them out briefly, scanning the instructions, trying to make sense of the paths, the names, the warnings. Each line seemed more cryptic than the last. Yet one thing was clear. The people chasing us were not just after us, they were after what we knew. What we carried. As I rounded a corner, a sudden noise made me stumble. A metal trash can had tipped over, clanging loudly against the alley wall. My heart leaped into my throat. I froze, listening. Footsteps slow, measured decode behind me. Whoever was following me had heard the noise. I pressed myself against the cold brick wall, holding my breath, praying they hadn't noticed which way I went. My hands were slick with sweat, the notes burning between my fingers like they carried their own urgency. Every second stretched endlessly. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move. Then, out of nowhere, a figure appeared at the end of the alley. My first instinct was to run, but the alley was narrow and there was no escape without being seen. The figure moved closer, shadowed by the dim streetlights. And I could finally glimpse the glint of something in their hand, a knife, or a weapon of some kind. My chest tightened and I felt a wave of panic that made my vision narrow. I needed to move, but my legs felt frozen. My daughter's earlier advice echoed in my mind: split up. Survival meant making impossible choices, and I had no time to second guess them. I dove into a doorway just as the figure advanced, pressing myself against the wall in the darkness. My breathing came in short, panicked gasps, each one loud in the silence. The notes were still in my hand, and I realized I had no choice but to follow their instructions to the letter. Every detail mattered. Every movement mattered. The path outlined in the notes led me through dark streets, abandoned buildings, and alleys I didn't recognize. Yet somehow it felt like the only way to survive. Each step was a test, a gamble between life and death. Somewhere ahead, I heard the faint sound of a door creaking, and then my daughter's voice whispering urgently, "Keep going. Don't stop. Don't look back." Relief washed over me for a moment. I wasn't alone. But the relief was short-lived. Footsteps behind me grew louder, faster, more aggressive. Whoever was following me had adapted. They were relentless, and they weren't going to let us escape. My heart raced, and my mind screamed warnings I didn't have time to process suddenly. I reached a small courtyard, illuminated by a single flickering light. I pressed myself into the shadows, chest heaving, and realized the notes were guiding me here for a reason. There was a box, small and unassuming, tucked behind a dumpster. I opened it cautiously and found more papers, a small key, and a USB drive. My hands shook as I grabbed them. The papers contained new instructions, more names, and coordinates. The key and the drive felt heavy in my palm, as if they carried the weight of the world. I didn't understand yet, but I knew they were important, vital. Then I heard a voice, low and dangerous, from somewhere above. "You can't run forever." My blood ran cold. My daughter's voice echoed in my memory. "We have to keep moving." I knew then that the chase wasn't just about distance. It was about the secrets we carried. Someone or something wanted them badly enough to hunt us relentlessly. And as the footsteps closed in, I realized that the next move I made could be the difference between survival and something far worse. I stuffed the papers and USB drive into my bag, clutching the key tightly in my hand. My legs moved before my mind could catch up, running deeper into the darkness. Following the instructions in the notes, every sense on high alert. I could hear the footsteps of our pursuers behind me, and I knew one terrifying truth. This chase was far from over, and the secrets in my hands were more dangerous than I could ever imagine. And then, from the shadows ahead, a hand shot out, grabbing my shoulder. My heart froze. I spun around, but all I could see was darkness and movement. The grip was strong, unyielding. And as I struggled, a voice hissed in my ear, chilling and familiar. "You're too late. You shouldn't have come here." I still remember that day, the darkness pressing in from every side, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst. The hand gripping my shoulder was cold, unrelenting, and the voice in my ear sent a shiver straight down my spine. "You're too late. You shouldn't have come here." I wanted to scream, to fight, but my mind went blank. Panic clouded everything, and the notes in my bag felt impossibly heavy, like they were pulling me down into the shadows. My daughter's voice rang in my ears, a faint echo. "Trust the notes. Trust the notes." But how could I trust something I barely understood while someone held me like this, dragging me toward the unknown? The figure released me suddenly, and I stumbled backward, clutching the key in my hand. My eyes struggled to adjust to the dim light, and I could barely make out the silhouette of the person who had caught me. Tall, cloaked in black, their movements precise and controlled, every step calculated. My chest ached with fear, my legs trembling. The notes had led us here, and now I realized the terrifying truth. Whoever this was, they had been waiting for us, anticipating every move. My daughter appeared at the edge of the shadows, her face pale but determined. She whispered, "We have to follow the instructions. Every step." I nodded, barely able to breathe. The notes, the key, the USB drive, they were more than just papers. They were a map, a guide through a world I didn't even know existed. My daughter moved forward first, and I followed each step hesitant, careful, as if the wrong move could end everything. The figure behind us didn't speak, didn't move aggressively, but I could feel their eyes tracking every motion. The air was thick with tension, the silence broken only by the faint drip of water somewhere in the distance. I felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on me, suffocating and relentless. Finally, we reached a small room tucked away at the end of a narrow hallway. The notes had led us here. My daughter moved to a console embedded in the wall, sliding the USB drive into a slot. The screen flickered to life, revealing files, videos, and documents. I could hardly believe my eyes. What we were seeing made my head spin. Names of people I didn't recognize, locations I had never heard of, and instructions that seemed impossible were laid out in front of us. My hands shook as I realized the gravity of what we were holding. These weren't just secrets, they were evidence of something enormous. Something that could change everything. The figure stepped forward at last, breaking the silence. "You shouldn't have found this," they said. Their voice was low but filled with menace, and every word seemed to echo in the small room. "These secrets were never meant for you. If anyone knew, it would destroy everything." My stomach twisted. Destroy everything. What did that mean? My mind raced, trying to process the implications. My daughter's eyes met mine, fierce and unwavering. "We have no choice," she said. "People need to know the truth. If we don't act now—" She didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. Suddenly, the screen flickered and a video file began to play. My breath caught in my throat. Faces I recognized flashed across the screen, people I trusted, people I had seen every day. Yet they were part of something dark, something hidden. My hands trembled, and I gripped the notes tighter, the words etched into my mind. The documents revealed plans, secret meetings, and intentions that were chilling. My daughter leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper. This is why they're after us. They can't let anyone know." Fear and anger collided inside me. We weren't just being hunted. We were witnesses to something dangerous, something powerful. A sudden noise made us both jump. The figure in black had moved closer, watching us with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "You think you can expose this?" they said, voice sharp. "Do you know what will happen if you do?" My daughter's hand gripped mine tighter. "We have to try," she said, firm despite the fear in her eyes. "People deserve to know. We can't run forever. We can't hide." My chest tightened. Her courage was fierce, almost frightening, but it gave me a spark of hope. Maybe we could survive this. Maybe we could finish what we had started. Then, without warning, the doors slammed shut behind us and the lights flickered. Panic surged through me. My heart raced and my hands shook violently. The figure in black didn't move, didn't speak, but the tension in the room was suffocating. I realized then that we had only uncovered the first layer of this nightmare. The notes, the USB drive, the key, they were pieces of a puzzle far bigger than either of us had imagined. And the people who wanted to keep this secret hidden, they were willing to do anything to protect it. A faint clicking sound echoed in the room, almost imperceptible at first, and then louder, faster. My daughter's eyes widened. "It's a trap," she whispered. "We have to get out now." I grabbed the notes and the USB drive, clutching them like lifelines. The room seemed to close in on us, shadows stretching, pressing. And then from the corner of my eye, I saw movement, another figure emerging from the darkness, blocking our escape. My stomach dropped. We were trapped, and in that moment, I understood the terrifying truth. The secrets we held were dangerous, powerful, and deadly. Whoever had set this in motion didn't want anyone to survive. And as the shadows closed in, I realized that the fight for our lives and the fight to reveal the truth was only just beginning. I still remember that day, the cold shadows pressing in from every corner, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst, and the weight of the notes and USB drive burning against my chest like they carried a life of their own. My daughter's grip on my hand was iron strong, and I knew she felt the same fear, the same desperate need to survive. But there was no time to dwell on fear. Every instinct screamed that the figures closing in on us weren't ordinary. They were precise, dangerous, and patient. They wanted the secrets, and if they couldn't get them alive, they would do whatever it took to ensure no one ever knew. The room seemed to shrink as the shadowy figures advanced. Their movements fluid and silent, almost inhuman. I could feel the tension vibrating in the air, thick and suffocating, like the world itself was holding its breath. My daughter pulled me toward a narrow side exit, barely visible in the dim light. "We can't stay here," she whispered, voice low but sharp. "They're blocking our way out, and they've set traps we don't even see yet. Trust me, we have to move fast." I nodded, swallowing hard, my throat dry. I gripped the notes and USB drive like lifelines. Every step was calculated, each movement weighed. It's because one mistake could end everything as we moved. The floor creaked under our feet, each sound amplified in the tense silence. I could hear faint footsteps behind us, slow but deliberate, as if our pursuers were toying with us, letting us think we had a chance. Shadows danced across the walls, hiding corners and possible dangers I couldn't see. My chest tightened with every step. I realized with growing dread that this wasn't just a chase. It was a tested, deadly test we hadn't agreed to take, and one that could cost us our lives at any moment. Suddenly, a door slammed somewhere above us, making us both jump. My daughter pressed me into the shadows, eyes wide, listening. The figures hadn't followed yet, but the noise was a warning, a reminder that we weren't safe anywhere. I could feel my pulse in my temples, the heat of fear and adrenaline coursing through me. I glanced at my daughter. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with determination. "We've come too far to stop now," she said. "We have to finish this, whatever it takes." Her courage, fierce and unwavering, gave me a spark of hope, even as terror gnawed at my every thought. We finally reached a stairwell leading to the roof. The city lights glimmered in the distance, painting everything in cold, flickering yellow and orange. For a brief second, I thought we might make it. But then I heard the faint hum of engines below, a car starting, moving toward us. I froze, stomach twisting. My daughter grabbed my arm. "We're being surrounded. They know exactly where we are." Panic surged, but I forced myself to focus. The notes had led us here to this moment, and I knew there was still a plan, still a chance if we followed them perfectly. We climbed the stairs 2 at a time, hearts racing, lungs burning. The roof door creaked as we pushed it open, revealing the night sky and a narrow ledge along the building. My daughter went first, balancing carefully along the edge, and I followed, gripping her hand tightly. Below us, the street was alive with movement, figures, shadows. Cars, and I realized that escaping would not be simple. Whoever they were, they had resources, knowledge, and determination. They wouldn't give up, and we were still holding the key, the USB drive. The secrets they wanted so badly. Then, without warning, A flash of light blinded me. I stumbled, barely catching myself, and a metallic clang rang out behind us. Someone had thrown an object, maybe to block us, maybe to injure us. I didn't know. My pulse raced and fear gripped me like a vice. We had no choice but to keep moving along the narrow ledge. One slip, one mistake, and we could fall hundreds of feet. My daughter whispered, "Keep going." Almost there. Her voice was steady, but I could feel the tension in her body. The way her muscles strained with effort and fear as we rounded the corner. I could see a fire escape leading down to a deserted street below. Hope surged, brief and fragile. But just as I reached for it, a shadow leaped from above, landing between us and the fire escape. My breath caught. The figure was fast, strong, and blocking our only escape. My daughter and I froze, clutching the notes in USB drive like they were the only things keeping us alive. The shadow spoke, calm and deadly. "You can't escape now. Hand it over." My stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed to run. But the ledge was narrow, the drop deadly. I looked at my daughter. Her eyes met mine, filled with fear, yet a spark of defiance burned there. "We won't give it to you," she said firmly. "Not now, not ever." The figure moved closer, and I could feel the tension spike, every nerve in my body screaming that the next few seconds could determine our fate. And then, just as the shadow lunged, a sudden noise from below, a loud crash, like a car hitting something, distracted them. My daughter seized the moment, grabbing my hand. "Now, jump," she shouted. I hesitated for barely a heartbeat. Then together we leaped toward the fire escape, hearts pounding, bodies tense. The notes in USB drive clutched tightly against us. We landed hard, scraping our hands and knees, but we were alive. Barely. The shadow above shouted, furious but couldn't reach us. My daughter pulled me into the cover of an alley, and I gasped for air, shaking violently. We were safe for the moment, but I knew the danger wasn't over. Whoever was chasing us was relentless, powerful, and determined. And as I looked at my daughter, seeing the fire of determination in her eyes, I realized the terrifying truth. Escaping wasn't enough. We had to fight. We had to uncover the full secret in those notes and reveal it, no matter the cost. Because the people after us would stop at nothing. And that's when I heard the sound of another engine approaching. Faster this time. And I knew that the next move we made would determine whether we survived the night, or became another secret lost forever. I still remember that night, the cold biting air, the distant hum of the city, and the pounding of my heart that seemed to echo through every bone in my body. My daughter and I were crouched behind a stack of abandoned crates in a narrow alley, breathing hard, muscles trembling from fear and exhaustion. The notes and USB drive were clutched tightly in my hands, as if letting them go would mean letting go of our only chance to survive. Every sound from the streets beyond made my stomach drop, the roar of engines, the echo of footsteps, the faint metallic clang of someone searching relentlessly for us. I glanced at my daughter. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. "We can't run anymore," she whispered. "We have to finish this. The truth has to come out tonight." I nodded, my throat tight, my mind spinning. The notes had led us here, to a place where everything we had uncovered, the secrets, the warnings, the hidden plans, would either save us or destroy us. The city lights flickered, casting long shadows across the walls. And I felt as if the darkness itself was alive, pressing in, waiting for us to make the next move. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the mouth of the alley, silhouetted against the dim streetlight. My heart froze. It was the shadow from the roof, the one who had tried to block us before. Now they stood there, calm, confident, like a predator waiting for its prey to make a mistake. I pressed myself against the crates, clutching the notes tighter. My daughter whispered urgently, "We have to lure them. There's a way out through the old warehouse." I nodded, trusting her instinct even as fear gripped every part of me. We moved carefully, shadows swallowing us as we crept along the alley walls. The figure followed, silent, almost gliding, every step precise. The notes in my hands seemed to pulse with urgency, each word a reminder of the danger we carried. We reached the warehouse, a massive abandoned building with broken windows and rusted doors. My daughter pushed the door open and we slipped inside, hiding among the crates and debris. The cool, musty air of the warehouse hit us. A brief relief from the open streets outside, but I knew the figure wouldn't give up. They would follow us inside. Minutes passed in tense silence. I could hear the faint sound of breathing, the distant hum of engines, and the subtle shuffle of movement in the darkness. Every instinct screamed that we were walking into a trap, yet the notes guided us with precision. Finally, we reached the center of the warehouse. My daughter held up the USB drive and the key. "This is it," she whispered. "We reveal everything here. Now, if we don't, it's over." My hands shook as I inserted the drive into an old dusty laptop she had pulled from one of the crates. The screen flickered to life, revealing files, images, and videos that made my stomach twist. Faces I recognized flashed on the screen, people I trusted. People I had seen every day, each one involved in something dark, secret, and dangerous. Plans, meetings, documents, all pointing to actions that could ruin lives if exposed. My daughter's eyes met mine. "We have to send this to everyone. People have a right to know. It's now or never." I nodded, fear and adrenaline mixing into a cocktail that made my stomach churn. The shadows in the warehouse seemed to close in, as if aware of our plan. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the building. The figure was inside. I turned, heart hammering, and saw them emerging from the shadows, their expression unreadable but full of menace. "You shouldn't have come here," they said calmly, stepping closer. "Everything you've uncovered, it dies with you." Panic surged through me, but my daughter's voice cut through it. "We're not afraid of you. People deserve the truth." The figure paused, a faint hint of surprise flickering in their eyes. And then chaos erupted. The figure lunged toward us, but we were ready. My daughter shoved a crate between us, and I grabbed the laptop, frantically trying to upload the files. The shadows seemed to twist, moving closer, surrounding us from all sides. I could hear the scraping of metal, the shuffle of heavy boots, the cold determination in every sound. The notes in my hands pulsed like they were alive, guiding my fingers to press the right keys, follow the right steps. The screen displayed progress uploading. 50%, then 75%, then 90%. My daughter fought beside me. Her hands quick and precise, defending us with everything she had. I could feel fear, exhaustion, and adrenaline mixing, a storm in my veins. And then, just as the upload reached 99%, the figure lunged again, knocking over crates, sending dust and debris into the air. I stumbled, nearly losing the laptop, nearly losing everything. My heart leaped into my throat. The seconds felt like hours, each one stretching endlessly. And then finally, the screen changed. Upload complete. The files were sent. Every secret, every hidden truth, every dangerous plan was now out in the open. The figure froze, realization dawning, and I felt a surge of relief wash over me. But the danger wasn't over. They were still in the warehouse, still capable, still determined. My daughter grabbed my hand, her eyes fierce. "We have to move now." As we ran toward the exit, shadows closing in, engines roaring, and footsteps echoing all around, I realized the terrifying truth. Surviving the night was just the beginning. The secrets we had released would change everything. And as we burst into the cold night air, I knew one thing for certain: we had started something that could never be undone. I still remember that night, the cool air hitting my face as we ran out of the warehouse, the city lights flickering like distant stars, and the weight of what we had just done pressing on me. The files were out. Every secret, every hidden truth, every dangerous plan was now in the open. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a tiny spark of hope. But hope was fragile, and the world around us was still dangerous. We had survived the hunt, but the consequences of what we had exposed were only beginning. My daughter and I ran through the empty streets, hearts pounding, lungs burning. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound amplified, yet something had changed. The fear that had gripped us for days began to loosen, replaced by determination. The notes had guided us, the USB drive had revealed the secrets. And now, for the first time, I felt like we had some control over our fate. My hands were shaking as I clutched the notes. The pages worn from constant handling, but they felt lighter somehow, as if the weight of secrecy had finally begun to lift. We reached a quiet park on the edge of the city. Far from the chaos of the streets and the watchful eyes that had hunted us, my daughter sat down on a bench, exhausted but alive, and I sank beside her. For a moment, we just breathed, the silence of the night wrapping around us like a blanket. I looked at her and saw the same mix of fear, relief, and determination in her eyes that I felt in my own. "We did it," she whispered. "We survived. And the truth. It's out there now." I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes," I said, voice trembling. "It's out there. And maybe it can make a difference." The night was quiet, yet I could feel the world shifting. Somewhere, someone was reading the files we had released, learning the truths that had been hidden for so long. The people who had chased us, the shadows that had haunted our steps, they were powerful. Yes, but the power of truth was stronger. I realized that courage, determination, and the choice to act, even when everything seemed impossible, were forces no one could control. And as I held my daughter's hand, feeling her warmth and strength, I knew we had done something extraordinary. But survival had changed us. We weren't the same people who had entered the bank, innocently handling papers, unaware of the storm we were about to unleash. The chase, the fear, the secret sit had left marks on us, invisible but deep. Yet in those marks there was also growth, resilience, and the knowledge that even in the darkest moments we could fight, survive, and reveal the truth. My daughter leaned against me, and I felt a wave of gratitude that we had each other, that we had survived together, and that we had the courage to face whatever came next as dawn began to break. Painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges, I felt a sense of closure. The immediate danger had passed, but the impact of what we had done would ripple through lives, cities, and hearts. We had been small players in a dangerous game, but we had chosen to act, to uncover the truth, and to survive. The notes, the USB drive, the key they had been guides. But it was our courage, our choices, and our determination that had carried us through. I looked at my daughter, tired but alive, and whispered, "No matter what happens now, we face the truth. We did what we had to do." She smiled faintly, a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "Yes," she said, "and now it's out of our hands. The world will decide what happens next." I nodded, feeling the weight of relief and anticipation, knowing that while this chapter had ended, the story of what we had revealed was just beginning. And so, as the sun rose, casting its light over the city and washing away the shadows of the night, I realized something powerful. Courage isn't the absence of fire, it's the willingness to act in spite of it. And truth, no matter how dangerous or hidden, has a way of finding its path. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And remember, sometimes the smallest actions, the quietest courage, and the hardest choices can change everything.